So welcome back to Divorce Explained with me, Steve Benmore, and my co-host, Leanne Townsend. Today's subject is how the housing crisis in Ontario is affecting people going through a divorce. Now, this is an interesting concept. I mean, we've had COVID, we've had interest rates go down, then up. Then we had a new president, Donald Trump, with all the threats of the Trump tariffs. And then we had a new prime minister, Mark Carney. And so it's very hard to pinpoint exactly what caused the current situation in real estate in Ontario and mainly in Southern Ontario. But suffice it to say, we've had lots of cases of people that are splitting up, want to sell their home, can't sell their home, still living together in a situation that is not ideal. And so the question continues to come up by our clients, which is, what do we do if we can't sell our home? Or should we sell our home? Or should one of us buy the home out? Or assuming I move out, should I rent or should I buy? We're not going to cover all of those questions, but we're going to cover a couple of them today. And let me just kick off with the fact that it's a situation where there isn't really a definitive answer. And the reason for that is because every family situation is different. Just the other day, I was talking to my wife, Samantha, about the nature of divorce cases where people have to sell their home. And she was making the comment that people that have a matrimonial home worth under $800,000 are having a much harder time figuring out if they can buy one another out. And I said, well, why do you say that? And she says, well, because they barely qualified for a mortgage to buy an $800,000 house. They're not going to qualify for, one person's going to qualify for the mortgage, taking over the entire mortgage. I said, well, that's an interesting viewpoint, because I am looking at it from a completely different viewpoint. The families that are sitting in a $4 million house, where most of their assets are tied up in that $4 million house, those people will not be able to buy the other one out because of the size of the buyout. And in fact, they may not even be able to each afford a $2 million house, given the circumstances in the marketplace and the cost of mortgages and so forth. So the reality is we've got lots of clients that have been asking us this question. And sadly or positively, I say to them, your guess is as good as mine, because we don't know all those things that I just mentioned before. When is that going to calm down? And when are people going to be flooding back into the market to buy homes? And when that day comes, does that mean you're going to be paying more when you want to buy your post-divorce home? So anyway, those are just some preliminary thoughts that I wanted to share with you. And what do you think, Leanne?
Well, I think that the current housing situation is definitely creating some issues for clients in terms of, is this the time they should be listing? And I've found that there's been certain client situations where one side who perhaps is living in the matrimonial home while the other one is not, and is comfortable and doesn't really want to move, is using the argument that, well, there's a lot of chaos going on right now with the tariffs and the housing market is bad. So really we should hold off on listing the house until things are more stable and better and we'll get more money for it. But they're making that argument out of pure selfishness that they want to stay in the house. And there may be some validity to that argument. But for the spouse who's not in the house and who just wants to get their money, that doesn't necessarily fly. And interestingly, and I don't know why this is, but I would say over the last 6 months, I've had more clients selling their houses than I've had at once in ever potentially, or certainly in a very long time. And I am kind of curious about why is that the case? Because certainly people have been going through separation and divorce, and I don't think those numbers have changed. But for some reason, I just seem to have more clients than usual who are actually actively listing their houses right now. And some of them are selling and some of them are not selling. But it's just interesting with this challenging market to see so much of that happening.
In fact, I have one case right now where my client, the wife, wanted to buy the matrimonial home, and the husband had moved out, and she really wanted to keep the home. She also runs her own business out of the home. So she had some good reasons. Plus, they had 2 little kids who were in school in the area. I mean, she had some great reasons, but the house was jointly owned, and the husband really wanted his equity out. My client, thought that he was somewhat malicious in that he wanted to force the sale of the home to anybody other than her. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But he certainly wanted the home sold, and she didn't. And he brought a motion, and the judge, no shocker, forced the sale of the home. So the home went on the market, and this is about 6 months ago. Wasn't an offer for a month. Price dropped. Still no offers. Price dropped. Now, somewhere along this journey, she made an offer to him to buy the home from him. He didn't accept it. And then the price kept on dropping until such time that he, the husband, bought a new home himself and desperately needed the money from his home to buy the new home. And so at this point, the client put in another offer. This time was the lowest of all, and the husband accepted it. Wow. And so one could only imagine, the regret in his mind that he didn't offer to sell the house to her earlier, because on top of everything else, they both had to pay a real estate commission because of the fact that he forced the sale of the home on the open market through MLS, and the agents exacted their commission. Had the husband accepted her offer well before an order for the sale of the home, he would have ended up with more money. In any event, plus he would have had the money in his hands earlier, which is, time is money. But, going back to the subject of divorce and the sale of the home under the current real estate market, I have another case right now where I completed cross-examinations of the wife who's in the matrimonial home. And in this case, the house is worth around $5 million. And in that price category, the current real estate conditions have really taken a toll on the higher valued homes. So that $5 million home might be worth, in a better market, 5.5. But in a bad market, that $5 million home might sell for 4.85. And so I asked the spouse of my client in cross-examination, are you prepared to sell? And she said, only if I get the right price. And that was code for not right now. And so as I am assisting my client, one of the things that I have to think about, both as a lawyer and as a problem solver, is the debate between positions and interests. Now, both of the parties have the interest in maximizing the sale price. My client wants his money out. The wife wants to stay in the house as long as possible because right now it's more or less free housing with the exception of utilities because they don't have a mortgage. And so you've got a variety of interests and positions. And at the end of the day, if we could just call the common interest is to maximize the sale price. And I said to the client, we do have the option of offering to sell her the home at today's price and you getting a little bit of money now. In other words, she refinances it. And the rest of the money you get later when the price of the home goes back to what would be the normal market value, somewhere in the range of 2 to 5 years. And the mortgage that you hold on the house is to secure your interest, the one that she's living in and you've given up ownership. But that mortgage that you're holding could have a rate of interest that collects and is paid to you at the term expiry of the mortgage. So for example, if the mortgage is 7% a year for the next 4 years, he's going to get his money. He's secure on it for the next 4 years. He's going to get interest on that money. And we are able to do a deal. Anyway, that was just one idea that I shared with the client. He thought that was an interesting one. And in another idea, I thought, you know what people aren't doing? They're not taking advantage in the divorce setting of the very, very good rental market. because right now rental costs are really low. They're lower than they were a few years ago. And it affords people the opportunity to still live together in the matrimonial home, but to have an alternative home that they go to really as a respite from the day in and day out divorce situation. And this is most particularly applicable for people that have young children and they want to keep the kids in the home and in the school catchment. But at the same time, it's very hard for them to continue living together as a divorcing couple. So having an apartment, which they may even be able to share in the cost, can actually serve as a mechanism to keep the home until such time that the market is improving, and to also avoid the daily stress of cohabiting in the same home through a divorce.
Yeah, so that's, I guess, what we call nesting. And I've certainly had some clients who have done that type of arrangement as well. And I agree with you. With the current market, with the rentals being so low, that is a possible solution for clients who, maybe don't want to sell the house. Because depending on when you bought your house, I mean, if you bought it in the last couple of years, you probably don't want to sell it because you're going to take a loss on it. Whereas if you bought it many, many years ago, even if the market's down, you're still making a profit. And so it's not quite the same situation.
I wish it was that simple, because a lot of people, even if they bought their house 25 years ago for $500,000 and they saw their neighbor sell the exact same house a year ago for $1.8 million, and then their agent says to them, "You'll be lucky if you get 1.5 today." Yeah. But we expect the market to normalize again. So in their mind, by selling for 1.5, they're not making $1 million. They're leaving $300,000 on the table. And so that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people, particularly people these days. They see their house as their retirement or as their pension, and it's big money.
Yeah, for sure. And when you're going through separation and divorce and you're already carving out the joint pie, so both parties are coming out of it with less than they had jointly, taking a loss like that, they're particularly sensitive to it at this point in time. And I think that's why in these types of situations, the real estate agent can be so important, because it has to be an agent who knows what they're doing, who's experienced obviously in the market, but also dealing with more complex situations involving divorcing couples who don't trust each other. Because I've certainly seen a number of situations where the court has ordered the sale of the home because one party was refusing. And often the agent has enormous power and discretion in these types of situations, because often orders will say, to be listed at the price recommended by the agent. And the parties, if the price needs to be lowered, it's going to be by the guidance of the agent. And as it should be, the agent is the one with the real estate expertise. But in these types of situations where neither party trusts the other and doesn't want to take their word for anything, the agent, and having a really experienced, high quality agent is so important.
Oh, I agree with you. And thank God for me, I'm married to one. But
yes, exactly.
But putting that shameless plug aside, the truth of the matter is, what I have seen with Samantha is that when she's assisting either one spouse or both spouses with the sale of their matrimonial home, she's actually doing quite a few things all at the same time. She's valuing the home. She's organizing it and staging it to maximize the sale price. She's also managing each spouse's own very difficult sentiment and psychology over the sale of their home, the home that they may have had children in and celebrated parties in. And it's a difficult process to arrange for that couple, either at the same time or different times, to vacate the property so that a new buyer could walk through it. You take for granted, but it's very stressful to know that you're going through a divorce and then you've got to jump in your car and leave for 3 hours because a couple, another family, is going to walk through your home to start their journey in the home that is the end of your journey. And so on top of all that, I've seen Samantha concurrent with the sale process of the matrimonial home, start talking to each spouse separately and confidentially about where they're going to go next. Yeah. And that's a conversation that actually is, interestingly, one that provides hope and inspiration, because it's one thing to end a chapter, but when you start talking to the owners of the home, the spouses who are splitting up, about their next chapter, it actually opens the door to some conversation of happiness, of excitement, of life after divorce. And so there's a lot of different psychological issues going on at the same time. Some of it is very functional, like I said, the mechanical sale of the home. Some of it is spiritual, and some of it is emotional. And so there's a lot going on. And I can't tell you, like, before Sam and I were together, I blindly just told people, go find an agent. Really, like, in my mind, possibly naively, I just thought an agent is an agent is an agent. And the fact of the matter is, a lawyer is not a lawyer is not a lawyer. Every lawyer is different. In fact, you and I are different lawyers.
Yeah.
And agents are different. And, you're absolutely right. The role of the agent is so critical. And in fact, I think when people hire a good agent or two agents working together to deal with the sale of a matrimonial home, they save thousands of dollars in legal fees. And I've seen that happen.
Yes, me too. And one of the things I find sometimes unfortunate is that because both parties often mistrust each other so much, and then also, of course, mistrust the other party's lawyer, the other party's family lawyer. I could recommend a really good agent like Samantha, and the other side, will immediately say, nope. Just because it's coming from, me as the lawyer for one of the spouses. And I really encourage people out there, if they're in this type of situation and they're selling their home, to really just look at the agent who's being recommended and not be biased against them just because of where that referral came from or where that recommendation came from, because we all operate with integrity, and, any good real estate agent is not going to compromise their professional reputation or run afoul of regulations and rules they have to follow just because they know the lawyer or the party who referred them. Similarly, us as lawyers, when we hold people's money in our trust account, we're not going to, if we're holding money that belongs to the other party, we're not going to do something improper with it because we're governed by rules, and we're not going to sacrifice our career over a client situation. And so I think people need to be more open-minded about real estate agent referrals and not just automatically say no because it came from your spouse's lawyer. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. Anyway, I wish anybody watching this goes through the process of their separation and divorce as smoothly, calmly, and inexpensively as possible. And for most of our divorces, there is a matrimonial home. And by definition, when they divorce, they don't continue living in the same home. So something has to happen to that home. Either somebody buys it out or it's sold on the open market. And I hope for whoever is going through that, they go through it smoothly, calmly, and obviously in a manner in which maintains the integrity of the process and the relationship between each other. And I completely concur. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll be back again next time with a new topic. Bye for now.